Okay, why do I think men must support equality, and why do I think it's important? So I've written a nice little speech here. I'm not sure I'm going to stick to it. That's the problem. Okay, the Alba Party passed a motion at our first conference to support equality and women's rights. I think we should all be very proud that we did that. But there was something missing, and that was men. Men voted for it, but very few spoke up for it. And I think it's about time we changed that. So why am I here in front of you talking about men must support equality? Well, it all started when I was still at school, which, by the way, was a long time ago. And it's because of my mother. And my mum was not just a mother or a housewife. She also had a part-time job. She also did the VAT returns and administration for my father's business. He was a painter and decorator. And so she had savings. And she had a driving license, and she wanted to buy a little second-hand car. This was in the early 1970s. So we went to a garage in Edinburgh called Appleyard, quite posh, Custorf in Edinburgh. And we looked at a little Volkswagen Polo Derby. Light blue it was. It was about £1,500. In 1972, that was a lot of money. And my mother sat down with a car salesman, and they discussed buying this car. And she had the deposit, and obviously she had a part-time job. She had her own savings. The house was in joint names. Remember that? And she, after filling out the form, the car salesman then said, and I quote, "Now you will need your husband's signature as guarantor." And that is when I realized women were not being treated equally. And it shocked me then, and it still shocks me now, that we haven't moved on from there. The Equality Act 2010 is important because it sets down in law 9 characteristics that are protected against law, and it's against the law to discriminate against any of them. But here's my message to every man in this audience and at home watching. Every man owes a debt of duty and gratitude to their mother who gave birth to them. Some of them may have forgotten or taken it for granted. I haven't. Women are equal. Sometimes they're actually better than equal, as they prove on many occasions. Men and women now need to unite to support equality. And that means, instead of me being one of very few people down on the women won't wished, and there was at least a dozen men there, out of, I think, at least 500 women. Well, all I'd say is, where the hell were the rest of you? Conference, our elected politicians have a duty to uphold the law. Turning a blind eye or a deaf ear to women online being bullied and threatened is not acceptable, and it's happening every day. Our law enforcers must treat that online abuse as lawbreakers, and they must act. Social media is being used by a small number of people to abuse others, nearly always women. I find it abhorrent that female political elected members of the House of Commons are regularly on the receiving end from threats of murder, rape, and violence, while at the same time, political leaders of certain parties stay silent. Silence is treated by those abusers as somehow condoning it. Well, it's not acceptable, and we must call it out wherever we find it. A person's sex is a protected characteristic. Single sex, not gender, but single sex spaces are a human right. and they are protected under the Equality Act. It's time to stand up and be heard. We have a duty to protect every child from the potential risk, even if it's only a very small one, of someone gaining access to single spaces for women and girls. So we call on all political party leaders, especially male politicians, to stand up and speak up and say that they will support the Equality and the Equality Act and all 9 characteristics. Conference, it is shameful that our Scottish Government has failed to uphold the Equality Act. It is shameful that we have a female First Minister who has failed to protect women's rights. It is shameful that the First Minister has stayed silent when her own female MPs are being threatened and abused online by members of her own party. So let the message from the Alba Party go out wide and be heard clearly. We do not support that sort of behaviour. It is shameful. And before I round up, this is Scotland. We should lead, because Scotland is the birthplace of universal education, the Common Good Fund, free education, and equality is not for sale. And I'm still under time, I believe.
You're not looking at me.
Okay, I'm deliberately not looking at you. So now, for a little bit of fun, I'm going to self-identify as Jennifer Aniston. Here comes the science bit. The 9 protected characteristics in the Equality Act are: 1, age; 2, disability; 3, gender reassignment; 4, marriage and civil partnership; 5, pregnancy and maternity; 6, race; 7, religion or belief; 8, sex, that's male or female; 9, sexual orientation. Bloody hell, being a woman's hard, isn't it? Conference, it's time for all men to remember their debt of gratitude to their mother. Let's make Scotland more equal. Please stand up for equality and support this motion. Thank you.